Hello, welcome to today's update. So today I did a few things. So let's just kind of get right into it. First thing is that I changed up the slash animation a little bit from last time you looked at it. I think this is it. Let me put up. So I've added one. I changed the way the sword was angled during anticipation, and then just to be more realistic, I think it's kind of unrealistic because I think the thing I realized is that when you're holding like a sword or some sort of weapon, and you're kind of like getting ready to slash, it's almost always at a right angle um, to your arm, and also in order to get the most power, right, you want to be your arms are usually very bent. So I incorporate that into the slash. And added this frame here and overall improved the smears on the slash. I think just the way his body's moving is a lot smoother and more linear than last time, which is good. Give you this solid kind of flow of action. So yeah, I added that, and I've added it into the game. Let's see what up. So now in the game. I think the way the frame rates are different between. I don't know why the frame rates will be different between when I have it at the same frame rate in Krita and in the game. Currently, I think I have it set to like some kind of absurd frame rate. I think it's like 30 frame rates or something. But it feels a little bit slow in game, but I think it's okay. So yeah, that's one thing I worked on. The other thing I worked on was that I started today was a jump. I actually separated between my rough and my final one just to kind of show you guys the difference between each of the two. So this is the super rough one. I wanted this to be like very, what do I say, like kind of like monkey-ish, where he like kind of crouches all the way to the ground and he like springs all the way up, and then like so using a lot of his hand, right? Because that's kind of like how a wolf would sort of function, right? It gives it more kind of like that grounded, like somewhat more animal feel to him. So that's why I decided to use where he's making sure he's crouching down super low, almost kind of breaking his skeletons a little bit, and then landing back on the ground. So after I draw everything with kind of like super rough stick figures, just to kind of get the action and the motion right, I go over and draw something and basically put weights on like all the limbs and all the body and stuff like that, and make sure that they're like actually somewhat the correct proportions and stuff like that. So this is the finished product. I haven't actually added his like wolf head, but I added his cape. So he crouches down a little bit. I actually made a little bit of modification because sometimes you like this is super rough and it's kind of like unclear what's happening, and when you actually render it out, it doesn't it doesn't really make sense. So I changed the pose a little bit to give it more of that kind of power feel. And he jumps up. The cape flaps around a little bit, and then he's falling down. I've added these like kind of like cape animation just to kind of add some motion when as he's jumping and falling, and then this is him landing, and then getting back to recovery. I actually for a lot of these animation, I actually reference other fighting games a lot. So some of this is definitely taken from just like trying to see like exactly what's happening when like I'm going frame by frame. So there's BlazBlue here. I use a lot of Hibiki for this character's reference because they both have like that like double blade move. And it's useful to just kind of see the posture and how people are doing, like people are animating them holding right two different weapons. Some of them are more useful than others, right? I think sometimes you have to think about characteristic, like the character and how they would act, rather than some generic just copying what they're doing. So yeah, that is also now in the game. So let's see. Ooh. So you can jump. Yeah. Let's see. So in order to get this jump to work, it actually took a few more tricks. I added another state called pre-jump that lets you that happens before, that lets me play the pre-jump animation, and then there's an additional variable that checks whether you've just landed, and it gives it like a 0.2 or 0.1 second window where it will play the jump, or play the landing animation after he lands, but it doesn't actually interrupt his movement. So he's still standing, but he will just play the animation if you don't do anything during it. It will also play when you're like during air recovery and stuff like that. But you know, I haven't implemented any air attacks yet. So that's something to come later on. So a few other things. You notice that he actually runs forward at a slower speed or faster speed than his back speed. So this is because I've actually added forward and back movement speed now, so that I can more granularly modify how the character, right, how quick they can approach, how quick they can back off, and stuff like that. I also added 2 different variables for the jump arc velocity, so it controls how like diagonal the jump is. So you can see his back jump is a lot more high, a lot more straight than his forward jump. So yeah. One last thing. After that, I started working on my spike, which is an air attack that he just kind of like. I was actually thinking about this quite a bit already beforehand, where he just jumps up and just does his giant slash. I started drafting it out. I thought it would be cool for him to like spin around afterwards. I think having actually like the idle or like some of your whatever animation that you're gonna base that kind of like the return state in the beginning and the end actually really helps in terms of keeping knowing what the character should be doing next and keeping his proportion correct. As you can see here, everything's super rough, but you play it. Let's see. Oh yeah. So actually ends up pretty cool. Actually don't know how he stops spinning in the air, but the other question is how does he start spinning in the air? But you know, game physics or imagined fictional physics. So yeah, that's kind of everything that I've added today. I'm gonna keep working on this slash animation. I think these the slash you see, and then this slash here is gonna be his standing slash heavy attacks and jumping heavy attacks, and I think they're both gonna be super. His jumping, I think one thing I still need to do is definitely flesh out exactly what his kit is and what his special moves and stuff like that is. But I think these two do a pretty good job of conveying like his kind of character in terms of some of like not very controlled. So actually, yeah, one thing I did for the slash was that I actually made him lean forward a lot more during the slash, so he feels like he's less like in control, or like he's putting all his weight into his front foot and kind of over pushing himself, which kind of plays into his character a lot more. So yeah, that's the update for today. Anything else I wanted to include? No, I think that's kind of it. It was interesting looking at like all the different jump animations. I think Soul, he's very vertical, so he has this like little like crouching thing in the top of his jump, but otherwise he's pretty extended. I think Hibiki instead remains pretty crouched when he jumps down. I'm actually not sure. There's one thing I was considering where how kind of compact he is while he's jumping, and I think I wanted him to be more compact than other people, and I think the stance right here is kind of like really good in terms of like the angles of the blades and his posture where he's like 1 foot down first, and I think that's pretty nice. So yeah, look forward to more attacks. I've also started migrating. Oh, one more thing. There's this thing called Blueprint Libraries that I started using because I was copying a bunch of code from my like parent BP dude. I hope this doesn't crash. I was trying to copy a bunch of code from my parent BP dude into my wolf class, my wolf character. But because a lot of these are macros, they don't actually. So I can't copy macros over from BP dude into BP wolf. So I need to start porting them over to this thing called a blueprint library, and you basically have a parent class for this blueprint library, and then you can have access to other variables as a normal macro would have access to, and then that basically gives your child access to these macros, it's kind of annoying at first because I copy something over and it just doesn't work because all these kind of nodes are missing from the macros. So I'm actually feeling like I'm more encouraged to use macros from now on, or functions from now on, because they can be called easily from your children, which is awesome. Um, but for macros, something definitely need macros. I don't know if everything here needs to be macros. Like if you need to create a hitbox, you definitely need to be a macro and stuff like that. Definitely trying to keep everything inside functions as much as possible. Um, so yeah, I copied over jumping logic and stuff like that. I'm not exactly sure where the line I want to divide between the parent class and the child classes. Um, Obviously, a lot of this is basically the same between each of the characters. I'm actually not sure at this point whether I should make this copy this back over into BPDude. That's something that I'm considering because I mean everybody needs a pre-jump frame. I think it does give me flexibility in terms of, or at least this current structure gives me flexibility to kind of override everything that I need to override from the parent class, which is good, and then just kind of hide everything away that I don't need to if I don't need it. So it's good. I guess the thing with kind of um, coding together a game is that you rather have access to more things than kind of abstract things too early on, and then not having access to them, because then you just have a bunch of stuff that you need access to, but you just can't access them unless you find some other pathway for it or stuff like that. That's not great. So, anyways, yeah. So that's kind of all the progress I have for today. Let me see. I think I'm looking over at my Trello board right now. Yeah, I think some of the animations definitely. I mean, the animation are not final. I think I'm missing. Let's see, what am I missing? I'm missing the head. This animation is not complete for jumps. I think I'm missing the head. Well, we're pretty happy with how this looks, TBH. So you know, it's good. I think having the different movement speed definitely makes the walk back and run animation a lot nicer to look at compared to before, where he's just kind of running on the ground. So yeah, thanks for tuning in, and see you guys tomorrow.